Welcome to the Sales Podcast, session 54. It's time to stop getting vetoed by VITO. Welcome to the 54th edition of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host, and I am fired up today for a few reasons. It's April 2nd, the day before my birthday. We're heading out to the dueling pianos tonight. I got a beer in my hand. My wife got me a new office chair. I already put it together. I don't know if it's my better posture, maybe cracked open a little cold brew already, or the fact that one of my sales idols is on today, Mr. Anthony Parinello, Tony Parinello, the best-selling author of Selling to VITO, the very important top officer. You'll get to hear us reminisce. I've known him for a few years now. I got to meet him, had him sign my book, and we've been friends ever since because I bought his book, I read his book, I took notes in it, I dog-eared it. It's literally, I've got bookmarks in it, things sticking out, and he was fired up to see that. But we'll get into that in just a second. I don't have a sales joke for you today, but I did find some Stephen Wright one-liners. So I may be using these for the next 50 or 100 podcasts because Stephen Wright is just the man. But, he says, I've got a bus station. It's where a bus stops. A train station is where a train stops. And on my desk, I have a workstation. Go figure. Stephen Wright, that dude is missed. He was a genius. Speaking of work, it's time for the Sales Podcast Creed. Today is my day. I work diligently towards my goals, which are bigger than me. I bite off more than I can chew because only then will I truly know my current limits, and surpassing them becomes my new goal for today. Through education, accountability partners, and bold, decisive action, today will be better than yesterday, and tomorrow will be better yet. I'm ready to produce. If you need to produce more leads, more qualified leads, educate them, and close them on autopilot, please visit thesaleswhisperer.com, check out my Infusionsoft demo, and learn how I have taken that platform over the last 6 years, since 2008, to automate every piece of my business, from marketing, sales, delivery of content, asking for referrals and testimonials, internal fulfillment of orders, the assignment of tasks, assignment of duties between the team. I said duty. Assignment of duties and tasks amongst team members for web development, product development, copywriting, you name it. I've used Infusionsoft, again, since the fall of 2008. And I have follow-up sequences. Actually, the 7 Deadly Sins of Selling was the very first thing I ever created. I already had it written. When I got Infusionsoft, I automated that series, and it has run continuously ever since. So if you would like that type of automation in your business, please, again, check out thesaleswhisperer.com, request the Infusionsoft demo, and it'll probably be me that'll get in touch with you to do the actual demo. So check it out. So now, without further ado, let's bring in Mr. Anthony Parinello of Selling to VITO fame. Tony Parinello, the Selling to VITO author, one of my sales training idols. Welcome to the Sales Whisperer Podcast. How are you?
Oh, great. I'm great, Wes. Thanks for the opportunity to chat with you today, man.
I don't know if you remember when we met at Suzanne Audis's thing years ago, and I got this I'm holding it in my hand with all my tabs. You can hear me slap it. I think this was a first edition, and I brought it to you, and I said, hey, can you sign this? And I remember you took this book, and you looked at it kind of like, I thought like I'd messed up because I had written in it, right? And I thought, oh, man, Tony's mad because I marked up his book. And you held this thing, you go, man, that's a first edition. And you were like admiring it. And you go, and you're like, look at the notes. You're like, I will be glad to sign this.
Yeah, it's a compliment. It's a compliment when someone such as yourself takes something that you read and you highlight it, you dog-ear it, you mark it up, because that means there's real value to the contents as it applies to you. So that was a compliment, man. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was still in high-tech sales when I ran across you and got your books, been following you ever since. But for those that may not know who you are, would you mind giving us a quick thumbnail sketch of Selling to VITO and Anthony Parinello?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, Selling to VITO's got nothing to do with my Italian heritage, or or trying to sell to the mob or convince an Italian to do something that maybe they don't want to do. But, basically, in a nutshell, selling to VITO, VITO stands for the very important top officer or the person with the ultimate veto power. Generally speaking, that's the person who sits at the top of the organization. They have titles like president, CEO, owner, or other privileged C-suite titles. So basically, I have cracked the code and continue to develop that code on how to snag the intentional area of these people's brains and get them to either say out loud or think to themselves, tell me more. Whether they're either reading something, I write, or they're listening to a voicemail message I leave them, or I'm connecting with them on the phone or in person.
Right.
And it's every aspect of that. I mean, from the A to Z on how to get to these individuals and make a sales call on them and sell them something.
Right.
Yeah. So that's basically what it is. And it's been a fun ride for this is my 27th year because I started my business. I started this when I was 40 and I'm going to be 67 years old this year. So it's been 27 years of developing and, training over 2.5 million salespeople in the majority of the Fortune 1000 companies how to sell to VITO.
Well, how come people don't listen? I mean, more people need to listen to you so they quit giving a bad name to all the other salespeople.
That's a darn good question. And, pointing back to your book that you bought, you dog-eared it, you took action. Most people will buy something, never take off the shrink wrap, never get to the last chapter, let alone taking action on what they're learning. So a lot of this, Wes, as you know, in our business of sales training, it's getting the point across and making it believable enough for somebody to take action and do what it is you're suggesting. I think it's like 5% of the people that buy a book or listen to an audio program actually finish it.
Right.
And less probably take action on it. So, yeah, that's always a challenge.
So what are you seeing? My world has changed a lot insofar as I work a lot more with small businesses, privately owned businesses. They still may be doing some B2B, but it may be B2C. But what are you seeing in the marketplace with social media and everything? Are the things that you're training still working? Are people still wired the same?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think a lot of it's generational. I think a lot of it's depending upon the marketplace, the industries you sell into, the territory, and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, at the end of the day, even with all the social media that takes place, there's got to be an over-the-phone or in-person interaction with someone if they're going to trust you enough to buy your product, service, or solution.
Right.
So I think the preface of all that has changed. The mechanism of approach might change, but when the end of the day, when they tally up the score, the rubber's going to hit the road when you're interacting on a one-on-one or one-on-many level with your prospects. And that's either verbal or video or in person. And so I think a lot of it has not changed.
Right.
But some of it has. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and human nature probably never changes. But, I tell people that all the time is, social media, all your marketing, the goal is to make the phone ring or have somebody stop into your place of work. Because unless you're 100% e-commerce, you still have to have a dialogue with a human being to actually get the money, right?
Yeah. Here's the fun part of all this. When the phone rings around here, if no one else is around in the studio, I dive for it. I answer it, and people are shocked that they can talk to the owner of the company, or they can talk to the author of the book, or the presenter. So I'm convinced, Wes, that person-to-person contact really is where it has always been and always will continue to be. No matter how you reach that point, you might go to my website and take a look. You might read a newsletter that I put out, but at the end of the day, you got to hear from the person. It's the person-to-person aspect, I think, that really carries most of the weight in the decision-making process.
So that's an interesting point. Do you play kind of hard to get yourself? Do you try?
No, and I think that too. If you run into a prospect that plays hard to get, if you can't get the name of a president of a company or an owner of a company or a CEO, if they're hiding that much from me, I don't want them as a customer. I don't want to do business with them. I want someone that's visible, someone that's engaged, someone that's authentic. And I think buyers today, I don't mean buyers and purchasing agents, I mean decision makers, top decision makers appreciate authentic approaches and real people.
Well, but what about you personally? Like with me, I'm afraid sometimes to answer the phone if I don't know who's calling, because it could turn into a free consultation. Somebody, let me just pick your brain real quick, and it's never real quick. And unless you really are adept at turning things around, if I'm in the middle of something, my phone rings all the time. I'm like, do I answer it or not? And if I'm in the middle of something, I just don't, and I've got an assistant that helps. But, when do you know how to be kind of hard to get, as a well-known best-selling author, kind of having some walls versus being totally approachable and maybe getting too much of your time sapped away?
Well, here's my knee-jerk reaction to that. You touched on it. If you're busy, don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
If you're not, don't. But if you are available, then you're available. Some of the conversations that sometimes seem like they're going nowhere pay the biggest dividends, because you never know who's calling. You never know who you're talking to. And like most interactions with people, when you leave someone with an idea that they didn't have before they called you, they're going to spread the word. And so I guess we need boundaries. Yeah. We need to put time frames on stuff. Yeah. But if I pick up the phone, I'm available. And if I've got something happening, I'm going to tell somebody, look, when that other phone rings, for example, there's someone sitting in my office right now.
Right.
And when we started this conversation, I said, hey, this is going to take about a half hour. He says, fine, I'll sit here and wait. And so I think if you're real and you're responsive and you're upfront, I think doors open rather than close.
Right.
And so we need boundaries, yes, but sometimes, you got to give to get. And I think, that's probably a general rule about everything. We got to give to get. We got to give to get. That's why so much stuff is free these days.
Right.
Online, so you can get so much stuff. I don't think I've ever gone to YouTube and not found what I needed to either change a fuel pump on one of my cars or create a recipe for puttanesca sauce because I got people coming over tonight. So, it is a knowledge-based world today.
What have you seen, since the big collapse, right, of 2008? I mean, you've been doing this 27 years, and you were selling before that. So, I mean, you've sold through some bad economies.
Yep.
Is this worse than before? Are executives harder to reach now? Are they maybe easier to reach? What are you seeing, like, in the big business world that you're training in?
Boy, that's a great question. I believe that if you have an idea, an innovation, whether it's proven or not, and you can articulate it in a way that the person you're speaking to can easily understand your idea, you will gain the attention of anyone at any level today. I don't think it's harder. I do believe it's different. I believe that because information is so available, people are better educated, yes, but they're still looking for something that no one else has, or they're looking for something that they need to make what they have better, faster, cheaper, smarter, whatever. And so I think it's all in the approach. It's all in how you snag the intentional area of someone's brain, and you do so perhaps more quickly now than before, because I remember, way back when it used to be, you got 30 seconds to catch someone's attention. Then you had 15. Then it was 8. Now it's like, hey, if you can't make sense in 2 seconds, you're not going to gain the next 2 seconds. So I think it's a revolving, a rolling 2-second world,
Right.
It's like when you read something these days, the headline catches your attention and gets you to spend the time reading the first sentence. The first sentence job is to get you to read the second sentence.
Yep.
So I think you got to earn every second of time you spend with someone either reading your stuff, visiting your website, or listening to your voicemail message, or interacting with you on a one-on-one basis. Yeah. Right. It's down to seconds. Yeah.
Are you still teaching? I got it here, page 152, the old sending the fax, the big while you were out. Are you still teaching that? Is that still effective?
Wes, that's a great question. You're a great student. Here's the thing. The fax machine rang the other day, and it has this interesting little ring, like this muted ring. Nobody in the office knew what it was. What the hell is that? Somebody's phone is ringing. Wait a minute. It's the fax machine. 3 of us ran over to the fax machine. We stared at it like it was the first fax we ever got. And so what's interesting about this, Wes, is that we still use the fax, and here's why. Everybody has spent so much time thinking out of the box, so to speak. The box is empty.
Yep.
So jump back into the box and try sending a handwritten, not send out cards by Cody Bateman. He's done a great job of building that organization over the years. And try sending a handwritten, hand-addressed envelope, lick or stick or peel and stick postage thank you note, and see the response you get.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. Everybody says they do it, but guess what? Very few people do it. Very few.
I know.
And same with faxes. So, yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I create a VITO letter. I send it out through the U.S. mail. I still do this myself today. I'm using the stuff that I teach. When I stop using it, I'll stop teaching it. An hour before I call, I'm going to fax the same letter that I sent through the U.S. Postal Service. I'm going to fax the letter.
Yep.
And it's amazing results. And the Club VITO members that we have, we had such a cute story the other day. One of the Club VITO members followed the process, sent the letter through the U.S. mail, and when he called, both the secretary and the president of the company was waiting to see if he was going to call when he said he would. So there it is right there. I mean, the real personal touch and the demonstration of being congruent and having integrity, which means you do what you say you're going to do when you said you were going to do it.
Right.
People look for that.
Yeah, because people that may not have read your book, they should all get 50 lashes with a wet noodle. But for those that haven't read it, they may not understand what you mean by people. They were waiting for your call because in your letter you tell them, hey,
yes.
I will call you,
yes.
Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. If that's not a good time, then have Tommy, the assistant, get back to me to schedule a new time.
That's right, Wes. And, by doing that, what's interesting about that? When you are proactive rather than reactive, I get letters and it says, well, you have any interest, visit our website. If you have any interest, give me. I'm not going to call somebody. That's their job to call me.
Right.
And so being proactive and being very specific with your proactivity, you mentioned specific day, date, and time that you're going to call, and the VITO's, the very important top officer's private assistant's name is in there. Well, we know this. VITO's private assistant opens all the emails, all the letters, all the correspondence. When they see their name in a piece of correspondence that's being sent to their president, they feel like their uniform's being saluted. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yep.
And when you say you're going to do something, you better well do it, because if you don't, you're going to lose with little credibility you never had. And so, yeah, it's putting it on the line. And I believe in this day and age, putting it on the line is still winning business.
Right. Yeah, because you do what you say you're going to do. And I get into that. I've learned over the years, one of the hardest things for me to learn was that whole kind of selling profiles, the DISC or the Myers-Briggs. And, salespeople were typically the outgoing, the D's and the I's. And you get a lot of people we deal with that are the Seymours, right? You call them. The S's and the C's. But, people are very analytical, and they can be, and even the outgoing types can be very analytical about something they're passionate about.
Yep, that's right.
So when you hit that deadline, when you follow through, you're winning the hearts and minds of half of the population that you may not normally click with. Which lets their guard down, right? And just makes it easier for you to make an inroad.
Yeah, well, the two key operative words, hearts and minds.
Yeah.
Just like when we listen to someone, we need to be actively listening to not only the words, but the emotions behind the words.
Yeah.
And so it's a conversation, just like we're having right now. You're having a conversation with a C-suite executive, and he or she says something with some emotion behind it. Be prepared to respond to the words and the emotion.
Right.
And that's what wins people's trust. And if someone is going to trust you first, they will listen to you second. They're not going to listen to you unless they have some trust and some credibility. And that's why doing what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it, like, hey, Wes, I'll send you that information you want. Well, if you just leave it like that, it has no power to it. But if you say, Wes, I'll send you that information by close of business today, and when will you have a chance to look at it? rather than saying, I'll just send you information. The more specific, the more proactive we are, the more likely it is that that next call will be accepted, that next step will be taken.
Yeah, that one of my taglines, it hit me years ago. I said that life's too short for follow-up calls. and people are like, well, you don't follow up, but you teach, follow up, fix your follow-up failure, yada, yada. I say, right, but maybe it's semantics, but like that little twist you put on there, when do you think you'll have a chance to review it?
Yes.
And then they say, oh, next week.
Yeah.
But then you say, early in the week, later in the week.
That's right. Can we pick a date right now that's convenient for you? That'll give you plenty of time to look at it and accept a next conversation with me. The other part of this, which a lot of people know, but no one does much about it. There's 3 ways that people learn. You're either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. You either need to look at it, you need to read it, hear it, or you need to experience it. Well, when someone asks you for information, wouldn't it be classic for you to say, well, thanks first of all, for the interest. It's nice to know that you're interested in getting some more information. Would you prefer something to read, something to listen to, or something to watch? Mm-hmm. Now, if I have my material in those 3 formats, I'm going to learn immediately what kind of learner this person is. Yep. Because here's the rub on this. Someone says, send me information. You say, yeah, I will. You send them something in writing, and they want to listen to it. They're not going to read it because they're auditory learners. Or if they read it, they're not going to get it because they really wanted to listen to it, but we didn't take the time to establish with them what kind of learning modality they prefer. Mm-hmm. So, and today, we all know, man, if you don't have text, audio, and video, you're not with the train. The train left the station, know. So
you do. You need it all.
You need it all. And so, to dial into that closely, to figure out how they want to receive the information, when they want to receive it, when they're going to look at it, and when we could have our next follow-up call makes us sound and appear to be different because we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I love your line. I'm sure you're going to remember this, but when somebody says, like if you're local and they say, yeah, can you send me some information?
Yes.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah. No, this is cute. It's a response that can really get a chuckle, and getting people to laugh is all part of it. And so Wes says, your prospect says, hey, send me some information. You say, well, I'd love to send it to you, but it weighs now it weighs 182 pounds. And it stands about, if you stand it on end, it's 6'1" high. We call it Tony when you want it there. And so, you're the best, representation of your product, service, solution, not some marketing slick or some one sheet. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I have used that and it has worked. They laughed. It works.
Yeah. God, you're a good student. You're a really good student, man. Hats off to you.
The other thing, I think this helped me with Infusionsoft as well, with the having a sequence of events. And to this day, I train people. I'm doing a sales training class April 22nd in Phoenix before the InfusionCon conference. Uh-huh. And I tell them to script out their voicemails. Yeah. To tell a little story, because, it's always a debate. Do I leave a message? Do I hang up? What do I say? I tell them, have a sequence of stories, just like on your letters, right, where you have that kind of call to action at the top. But then after the 5th or 6th or 7th, and I know you'll remember this too, and I still tell this to this day, and everybody laughs, and I have used it as well. But like when you really can't reach somebody after 4, 5, 6 calls, what do you tell them?
Well, you got some options here. For the first option, if you want to up the humor and get somebody to laugh, you can say something like, well, Ms. Importanta, you probably recognize my voice by now, but every night before I go to bed, I speak to God. Why can't I speak to you?
That's it.
You could lay that one out there. That's a gem. Or what else you could do, Wes? And this is. I love giving people options. After you leave someone several voicemail messages, and as you pointed out, you never leave the same one. You're leaving a storyline of results that are possible, or the opportunity for this, that, or the other thing. Well, one thing you might want to do is never leave a voicemail without closing the whole sequence. So another end of the voicemail sequence might be, rather than to leave yet another voicemail message. We might want to put this on hold for about 30 days or so. So, I'm going to give it a rest, and you'll be hearing from me a month from today. And in that time, here's what you might be missing out on. And so I want you to go to the consequence of no action, because there's always a consequence of everything. And even so, if they're not taking action, go on the consequence side. Here's what might be taking place unintentionally. Of course, you might be spending more than you really have to. You might be missing out on a revenue generating opportunity that could be costing your shareholders X number of dollars a month or whatever. Or during the time that we haven't been able to hook up and take the next step, this is what might be happening in your organization. So I would say do the consequence closing of an email, or every night before I go to bed. That's always fun too. But never just stop doing anything, and I'll tell you why. No matter if someone is calling you back or not, they're listening to your voicemail message.
Right.
And if you just stop, they're going to say, I knew it. They weren't as determined as I thought they were to win my business. So they're listening. So Don't stop. Once you start, you got to either take it all the way or just do one of those two types of ending voicemail messages. Yeah, but voicemail's great. It works really great. It's as popular now as it ever has been if you're leaving effective messages. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that kind of ties into what I was going to ask about just making cold calls, because there's a lot of people out there make a good living beating up cold calling. And, unfortunately, I don't have to do that anymore. But I'm in a different spot now. But I grew up cold calling, and I think in B2B, when you're working for a big company especially, you're not in control of the marketing. You can't maybe run your own blog and control your own Twitter feed. Your hands are a little bit tied. And, don't they still have to work the phone, and doesn't it still produce results?
Yeah, just give you an example of this. The month of April, we're running a VITO blitz with our Club VITO members. And so, picking up that phone and making that unexpected call to a C-suite individual is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I conduct VITO blitz days for major corporations globally. We do blitz days around the world of picking up the phone and calling VITOs. And it is astonishing, the results. I'll share these numbers with you. They're pretty crazy, but about 25% of the time, VITO, the very important top officer, will pick up the phone totally unprotected. Totally unprotected. I don't care how many private assistants they have, because they're all off doing something and they hear the phone ring. There's not a phone that's going to go unanswered in any executive suite, whether the executive picks it up, their assistant picks it up, or voicemail. Look at that. There's 3 wins right there. Right now, if we stop this call, Wes, and you go off to your day and I go off to my day, and we both pick up the phone and call a prospect that we haven't yet talked to at the C-suite level, the owner, CEO, president, or owner, one of 3 results has to take place. Number 1, either the C-suite dude or dudette's going to pick up, you're going to get their assistant, or you're going to get voicemail. Each one of those is a total win. Each one.
Yep.
So there. So, cold call, shit, it works. Whoops. Was I allowed to say that?
You said it quickly.
Yeah, I did.
It works. The caveat is that they have some type of script. They have your book, right? They have something that they're not just winging it, shooting from the hip. Right. Hey, Tony, this is Wes at the Sales Whisperer. We do sales training and sales software to automate your sales and marketing.
Stop right there. Hold it right there. Here's what just happened. Sales training, F word.
Yep.
It's software, F word. F words are facts, features, and functions that are unfamiliar to the person you're doing the yapping with. And they'll stop listening. Oh, that's what it is. We already got sales training. Oh, that's what it is. We already got software. That's what it is. We already got an application. So we paved the road down to linoleumville, as I call it, by just the words and phrases we use. And so, the message is critically, I call it yap. You don't say yap, but I call it yap. And so we put together that yap, that messaging for the audience of the person that you're delivering it to, which is in a different language. It has to be in the language of very important top officers, or they're not going to listen to it.
Yep.
Here's what's going to happen. They're either going to toast you, or they're going to shunt you or send you to the person you sound the most like. So if you sound like a software technologist or a sales trainer, you're going to the software technology department down in the bowels of the company.
Yep.
Done. It's done.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you think about it, it's very simple. It may not be easy, but it's simple,
Right.
Real simple to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes some planning, and unfortunately for somebody maybe listening to this, that they may be complaining, oh, my company doesn't train me. And, I've always said companies rarely provide sales training. They provide product training.
That's right.
And you need this type of training to realize the power you have as a salesperson and how much you have in common with that C-level executive.
Oh, yeah.
So you feel worthy to, quote, take up their time, because what you have to offer, if you work for a good company, you have a good product, you stand behind it, you service it, it's sold at the right price, they need what you have.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And here's why. If you think about it, the very important top office, the person at the top of the organization is measured on increasing shareholder value and or company economics. That's it. That's what they're measured on at the end of the day. There's only a couple of ways to do that. First, increase revenues. Second, increase efficiencies and or effectiveness of just about anything or everything or anybody or everybody, contain cost, and be more compliant. Now, I'll guess here that everybody listening to this broadcast right now, the product, service, or solution they sell does at least 2, maybe 3, or all 4 of those. Mm-hmm. Increase opportunity, increase revenue, increase efficiencies and effectiveness, cut expenses, be more compliant. Mm-hmm. The job becomes taking your ideas and your product, service, and solution and putting it in to yap, as I call it, that will snag the intentional area of the VITO's brain so they either say out loud or to themselves, whether they read it, hear it in person, over the phone, or on voicemail, you want the response of, tell me more.
Right?
The
Yep.
only way to get that is to have the messaging that makes sense to the audience that you're leaving it for. It's that simple.
Right.
Period. Done. End of task.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amen. And,
amen, brothers and sisters. Everybody say amen.
Amen. And all I can say is Tony wrote the book, and look where he is. And I read Tony's book and did what he told me to do, and look where I am. So
good for you. Good for you.
Well, how can people reach you? What's the best way to find you online, interact with you?
Yep. Thank you for the opportunity to share that with everybody. There's just a couple ways, and they're real easy. You can go online, of course, and just go to www.sellingtovito.com.
Okay.
And, of course, you're going to find out, that's my website. You can watch my videos. You can read what I have to offer. But basically, it boils down to something I call Club VITO. And when you join Club VITO, this is kind of cool. I personally will take you by the hand. I will tailor all of my VITO material to you, your product, service, and solution, and who you sell it to. I will hold your hand while you do it until you get it right. And that you get by joining something called Club VITO. It's a month-to-month membership. You get my attention 3 times a week. Whether you show up or not, everything's archived. And so, I work with each individual Club VITO member to make this stuff work. And you're in it for as long as you need to be in it, and then you're on your way.
Very nice. And it's,
3. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to make sure everybody knows it's VITO, VITO. Very important top officer acronym.
That's right. Thank you for that, Wesley. That's 3 Vito.com. And, just check it out.
Very cool. Well, I know you've got somebody in your office there, so I will let you run. I thank you for taking the time to share your words of wisdom.
Well, Wes, you're very welcome, and thank you for being in this industry that we're in and doing such a fine job and helping salespeople get better at what they do. And just thanks for being who you are and doing what you do. And thanks for your listeners to check out Club VITO in advance.
All right, and welcome to Skype.
Thanks for introducing me to how to hook all this up. It's been a delight.
All right, man. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. You want the response of tell me more. When have you ever heard that? Probably never. Far too many of us have never had sales training. We only had product training, and we talked about that in the interview. Your goal is not to sell someone over the phone, especially if you're banging out calls in a corporate environment, B2B, B2G, even B2C. Your goal is to have them become interested in what you're saying. So they're now listening. So you can then set a firm appointment with a decision maker with budget. That's the purpose of everything you do, even in your written marketing, not just your prospecting and cold calling. Okay, and those that tell you cold calling is dead, they're lying to you. They're saying that. They're yanking your strings to make a buck. Okay, now this is mainly true if you're selling to businesses. Okay, I don't have to cold call anymore. All right, and we talked about that on the interview as well. But I did do it in corporate America. But as Tony mentioned, with things like LinkedIn and Twitter and social media, it doesn't have to be a truly cold call. All right, you're not just randomly dialing numbers. You can research people. You can, soften the beachhead, if you will, by sending some direct mail, some faxes. Send a postcard or a letter. And if your company won't pay for it, then tough luck. Pay for it yourself. Okay. Send some letters, send some faxes, get their attention. Now you're not going in truly cold. But if you are in a corporate environment, your people, your marketing department, they're not going to really make things happen for you the way that you want and need. I never worked for a company, even in the boom, early 2000s before everything blew up. I never worked for a company that just gave me all the leads I could handle. I had to go make it myself. All right. You need to make it happen yourself as well. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, if you want to know how I've done it, if you want to know the tool, the system that I've used to automate my business now for all of my leads, all of my sales, then visit thesaleswhisperer.com, sign up for a free demo of Infusionsoft. Tanya, my assistant, Richie, my sales guy, will get in touch with you to set an appointment. We'll go through a demo. I'll answer your questions honestly. I turn more people away from that software than I help sign up because it's not right for everybody. But if you're a small business, 1 to 25 employees, and you're looking to automate your sales and marketing, it can probably be a big help. So I thank you for listening. Please, if you like this podcast, take a moment, visit iTunes. I'm still surprised at how hard it is to get people to leave a positive rating, any rating. You know what? I don't know. Go leave a negative rating. I don't know. I wouldn't be happy with it, but at least I know you visited iTunes and left a comment. So please take a moment and do that. And then when you do that, you can then ask others to do it for you. All right. So visit iTunes and leave a 5-star review. I would much appreciate it. And as always, remember to sell different.